sabe nada, sabe nada. And then he starts speaking. Stupida, no, yes.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons. Alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Ash has the night off. Each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, where you play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Gene, tonight, the two of us are going to have to don our detective cap, our little magnifying glasses. We're going to have to make sure that our keen sense of observation it's on point, because we're going back to review the 1986 historical mystery based on the 1980 novel of the same name. And that can only be one film, The Name of the Rose.
Not only our detective caps, we got to put on our bad boy hats because Ash is out. We're going to the Abbey with all the boys.
Well, it's just like the movie.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go wild here. We're going to maybe get ourselves some young boy apprentices, and we're going to head out there and solve a mystery.
Doing that unnatural caress.
Yes.
Well, our commissioner, Brian L., wrote in and said, "Hey, Shat crew, I got a real kick out of hearing you review my Buckaroo Banzai commission. I think you all liked it more than I did. Clearly, people of taste and discernment. Unfortunately, I suspect that I'm not giving you something nearly as good here. You've covered all the greats, and so it is getting harder and harder to find something to commission. I thought of The Name of the Rose only because a friend passed the book to me recently, and I remembered that I'd seen the movie 20 years ago. I was surprised the book was so dense with medieval church politics that the murder mysteries seemed almost an afterthought, as I recalled that the movie was little more than a moody whodunnit starring James Bond and the guy from Heathers. An okay movie, but largely forgettable. I remember only 3 things about it: dead monks with black tongues, a creepy library labyrinth, and a Slater peasant girl sex scene. The latter wasn't so remarkable in itself, but I recall it was awkward to watch due to the presence of my friend's new wife, who is very religious. She cut the tension by declaring, "There is no way those two actors are not actually having sex. You be the judge." My alternative pick was the altogether superior The Ice Storm, but I thought you might enjoy something you probably haven't seen, and who doesn't love Sean Connery? I'll commission the better films soon. I suspect this one is no better than 3 wipes. Thanks for all you do. I always look forward to the pod, whether I've seen the movies or not. I'm still standing by to commission Casablanca when you start Shat the Classics. And that's from our friend, Brian L.
So recently, as I've gotten in better shape, I've become more active, I have started playing softball again. Now, regardless of what you think of softball, I enjoy it. I have a good group of friends. So I was out there, and none of them know I do this podcast. So one of them brought it up, and we started debating films. All these people who are in same age range as I am, late 30s to late 40s, and we were debating films. And a lot of them that we did early on, I could barely remember. So I know within about 6 months, I will be just like Brian L. I will remember hot peasant sex, black tongues, a lot of inappropriate touching of young boys. And I think I'm going to be right in the same boat with you.
The Name of the Rose is a 1986 historical mystery based on the 1980 novel of the same name. Sean Connery stars as Franciscan friar William of Baskerville, called upon to solve a deadly mystery in the medieval abbey. Christian Slater portrays his young apprentice, Adso of Melk, and F. Murray Abraham is the Inquisitor rival Bernardo Gui. This English-language film was an international co-production between West German, French, and Italian companies and was filmed in Rome and at the former Eberbach Abbey in the Rheingau. It received mixed to positive reviews from critics and won several awards, including the BAFTA Award for Best Actor in a Leading Role for Sean Connery. Another adaptation was made in 2019 as a TV miniseries.
So I want to start by apologizing. I normally butcher names. The names of these characters, and I'm probably going to end up having to describe them by their physical appearance or maybe an actor's name. So don't question whether I watch this. It's just hard the way my brain works to keep this all organized.
Physical appearance is going to be tough too. It's going to be Baldy Big Nose,
the ugly guy,
and Balder Bigger Nose.
Yeah. Well, I could say Uncle Fester.
That's all of them.
Old Emperor. Yeah, that's true. But I'm sure I've seen this at some point in my life, but I do not remember exactly when. Sean Connery is legendary. We've done a number of his films, mostly good. And I enjoy most of his work. You know, some is good, some is bad. He's got this charisma. He is James Bond. His presence improves even the worst movies in. I'm looking at you, Entrapment or First Night with Gerbil.
Richard Gere.
Richard Gere. Okay. Or did you ever see League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? Bad.
I did.
And Highlander 2. So even those movies are tolerable to me because Sean Connery is on screen and you can't take your eyes off.
I was surprised that I hadn't seen this one because my childhood living room was basically mysteries and anything that featured big international names like Sean Connery. Like to Iranians, if Sean Connery is in the movie, it's, oh, Sean Connery. And then you have to watch it. Oddly, I didn't know this movie even existed until Brian commissioned it.
This was a time that I was shocked in Sean Connery's career where he was struggling and almost faded away. So this film was a turning point he had to fight for. He got it. It had mixed reviews, but it kickstarted a new renewal, a rebirth of Sean Connery. And without this film, whether or not it's good or bad, we would not have the Sean Connery of the late 90s and after.
All right, well, let's put on our robes, our sandals, start self-flagellating, and hit that trailer.
Within these walls, men come to seek God. He has come to seek a killer.
We found the body horribly mutilated under a window which was found closed. Somebody told you.
A man of reason in a world of blind faith.
Yes, small blood here.
You mean that he committed suicide?
Elementary.
And a crime that could not be suppressed.
Ink stains. He did not write with his tongue, I presume.
I don't like this place.
I find it most stimulating. Should we tell him? No. I am most curious to see the library for myself. May I do so? No.
But what if he should learn it of his own accord?
Written with lemon juice. Hey! Who's there?
You overestimate his talents.
This one, I grant you, did not commit suicide.
When he is challenged by a man of cruelty and power, the hunter becomes the hunted.
Brethren, if you please! The matter has occurred of the utmost gravity. Had someone else not chosen to look in the wrong direction, several men of God might still be with us.
Other monks will meet their deaths here, and they also will have blackened fingers and blackened tongues.
His fang is black, just as Brother William foretold.
Yes, I was right.
He knew, just as I, too, would have known had I been the murderer.
You go that way.
Lock them up!
One final murder has been planned.
Master? How do we get out?
With some difficulty.
And it's his. Sean Connery. F. Murray Abraham. The Name of the Rose. A story of unholy murder.
Franciscan friar William of Baskerville and his novice Adso arrive at a 14th century Benedictine abbey in northern Italy. A mysterious death has occurred ahead of an important church conference, and William, known for his deductive and analytical mind, investigates it as a suicide. Over the next few days, several other bizarre deaths occur. William and Adso meet the hunchback Salvatore and his handler, Remigio de Varine. William deduces they had once been members of a heretical sect that may have been involved in the killings. Meanwhile, Adso is seduced by a peasant girl who trades sexual favors for food.
So anyone who's followed us for, some time now in the 5 years that we've been doing the podcast knows we've done a few medieval films before. Lady Hawk, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Highlander, Braveheart, those come to mind. And most of them, I think, are laughable in the way that they represented what the clothes people would wear, what the sets looked like, the world of medieval times, of the 1500s. It looked really bad. Then we got Game of Thrones and other movies and shows put out by HBO and some films that were time appropriate. And it just totally changes what I'm expecting. And I think that the world that they created here, it is spot on. I'm surprised. It looks miserable. There's rotten teeth. Every room is dark. There's dirt everywhere. You could almost smell everything that was going on screen. And the monastery that you mentioned, yes, they filmed a lot inside there, but the exterior of that was just built for this film. They built it on top. It was a replica of the monastery on a hilltop in Rome. It took them 2 years to get pre-production done. And this was the biggest external set done in Europe since 1963's Cleopatra. So they built all the shit and it looks good.
Aside from that impressive set, though, I was mesmerized by the sound design in this movie. Like, you could hear every fucking thing. You could hear a cricket fart in this movie. Shuffling parchment, like the click of shoes on stone, squishy guts, breathing. And it reminded me of that like 80s over enhanced sound that I miss so much. Everything was just a little too clean, a little too perfect. And it was kind of like an unexpected little slice of ASMR. It was like it was massaging my brain throughout.
They filmed outside of Rome. The one thing they couldn't control was aircraft. So most of the dialogue that was recorded as they filmed was contaminated with noise from aircraft. So they were forced to go back and in post-production to redub everything. And that's why it sounds like that. But I had more of a problem with the conspicuous use of music. Like there would be a reveal like, hey, what's going on over there? And there'd be a dong, like a convenient just sound effect that would pair to it. But I'm willing to let it go because what we're seeing visually is beautiful.
Well, with that bit of information, I've got another complaint about this movie then, because if you re-recorded this audio or did it in a studio, I got complaints about not being able to understand what the fuck anybody's saying. And I get that they have accents. I get that they're from all over the world. But like most men in their 40s, I can't watch a movie or a TV show without closed captioning. It helps me follow what the hell is being said. And especially in a mystery, like, clues, like we did in Westworld. You start piecing together your theories based on what you're reading on the screen. But even closed captioning could not help me with this movie. Every actor in this movie seemed determined to either yell or whisper with various accents. And I understand, again, these are monks. They're from different orders. You got the Benedictines. You got the Franciscans. You got guys coming in that look like Sean Connery in The Highlander. You know what? Just do the movie in Latin with subtitles.
But man, I thought I was alone in that. So normally we can find a movie through a streaming service or rent. One of our partners is Just Watch. It's an app where you can put in a film. It would tell you where it's streaming, where you can buy it, anywhere. This film was not available. It was not. My library didn't even have it. The Orange County South Chase location of the library in my area didn't even have it. I would have had to drive an hour and a half. I couldn't. You thankfully found a link to, let's just say, a less than reputable version of the film. Looked spot on, claimed to have closed captioning, but I could not get it to function. So I had to watch this. And maybe that's why I like it more than you do, is I was forced to intensely look at people's mouths to see what they were saying and the scenery. If this was subtitled, maybe I wouldn't enjoy it as much.
You'd understand Ron Perlman a lot better. That's about it.
Well, I love him. He speaks six languages in the film. So his, I thought, was beautiful. His Italian was pretty good, but the cast, it is great. You can't name most of them, but they all look weathered. They're old. They're beaten down. They look like they've lived in this abbey for quite a long time. And that was intentional. The director admitted that he tried to cast ugly actors, the ugliest he could get, because he wanted the characters to look like they really lived in this time. He based it on the village he grew up in. And this works, except for Connery, who's got the trimmed beard. He's got like the darker mustache. He looks put together. He looks like maybe he's from a wealthier background. I'll let that go.
From another movie.
Yes, he does look like from another movie. But Christian Slater looks like the young heartthrob. He's clean. His hair looks good. His outfit looks great.
His hair looks good. He's got a fucking tonsure. He's got a big bald spot shaved to the top of his head.
But he has thick, lush hair. Everyone else has patchy stuff. They all look like Jason Voorhees when you take the mask off. His hair at least was there, man. But then we get to meet the peasant girl. And that's when shit just goes completely wild. My suspension of disbelief is gone. I'm pulled out of the 1500s because this girl, this character is played by Valentina Vargas. She was 22 and she looks good. Yes, she's a little dirty. It was like they took some ash and okay, let's rub this on her. Let's get a burlap sack. She disrobes and that body is tight. That body, that skin, her teeth, that was not a body that you would get eating trash or picking lice out of the people in your village and eating them. I think she looked amazing.
Just those good Chilean genetics. But Big D, I think you and I have very different tastes because I thought she looked sort of average.
No.
She was fit.
Yes.
And you said the dudes look like people the director saw growing up in his village. Did he grow up in a village where everyone had prosthetic noses? The fucking makeup guy, Hasso von Hugo, he won a BAFTA for best makeup for this movie. The only philosophy I could guess he was employing was give everybody a goofy haircut, like you said, these patchy tonsures, and then nose prosthetics. He was very into nose prosthetic. So I looked into his other movies, Resident Evil, Enemy at the Gates. This style is make everyone but your star look ugly as fuck.
And that's why I think she's a Victoria's Secret model. There's no way this girl would have gotten 10 feet from her hut without every monk pitching a tent in their robe and trying to get her in there and offer her an ox heart for some services. But they don't look like, let's say, mutants. Yes, they all look freakish. They look like the hills have eyes, but it looks at least like they're just really ugly and not prosthetic ugly.
You're telling me Ron Perlman's nose and the guy that plays Remigio.
Well, it's because we know it's Ron Perlman. I just picture Hellboy every time I see him. Yes, his was bad because he's got like the gums in his one tooth. That threw me off more than that hump. That hump on his back I thought looked passable.
So William of Baskerville, he's very clever. And Adso is off looking for Uncle Fester all around the Abbey. And he stumbles into this room where the girl is hiding behind some sacks.
Oh,
speaking of sacks, they get naked with each other. And Adso thinks he can hide it. William obviously knows what's going on. By the way, we should mention at this point in the podcast that William is like super detective. He's Sherlock Holmes on steroids. He's very clever. He deduces facts from tracks in the snow, books missing from shelves, ink on people's fingers. But he's got one blind spot, one area where his knowledge does not extend, and that is women. This dude's a virgin, which explains why he doesn't understand how the peasant sex worker operates. He goes to Adso and he's like, well, clearly you didn't have to pay for it like everybody else did because the other ones are ugly and you're young and beautiful. No. The woman's a pusher. She didn't fuck him because he was young and beautiful. She gives you that first hit for free.
No.
She comes on to you. She gets you hooked because as a monk, you don't know what you're missing. You get it. She knows you'll be back for more. And it works. Like one great fireside lay and Adso's creeping around her hut. He's suckered in. He's hooked.
I got extremely turned on by the scene. I'm not going to lie. She starts to disrobe. Young Christian Slater's a little nervous. Her dirty body again, looks great under. She mounts him. She's got the butt dimples above the cheeks. She gets her, and she actually reaches down, takes and inserts him. And I'm like, wow, I do not remember this. But I did some research here, and I don't know what it is with our foreign directors, but the making of this scene was also legendary. Christian Slater, new actor. The director had told him, hey, we're going to make this scene go a little bit longer, and I want you to be as intimate as possible. So Christian Slater's not wearing underpants. There is a slight moment where you can see his penis, and I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. But if you watch even more careful, the actress who's playing the peasant girl, she realizes what the director's doing, And she puts on a vagina patch mid-scene to cover her genitals because she knows there's going to be genital-to-genital contact. They let the scene go, and it was just shocking to her that the director had tried to get them to actually consummate, as well as Christian Slater expected that's what's going to happen. He had problem getting it up. He thought the scene was ruined, but it worked out in the end. But we almost got some full penetration on scene.
I think you need to clarify for me and the listeners, because I have no idea what the hell a vagina patch is. It's like an eye patch for a vagina?
Somewhat, yes. So like as experts in filmmaking, you and I should know that there's something called there's a merkin.
I know what a merkin is.
Okay, it's a flesh-colored underwear that has a pubic hair region that they use on film so that you're not seeing them really nude. A vagina patch is almost like an adhesive skin-colored, like moleskin, that you can put over a blister. It goes over the labia and around the back between the butt cheeks, and it's used by actresses who are going to be doing love scenes so that you don't actually get genital touching, because in the middle of a scene, you could actually have insertion. It could then become an issue where this wasn't part of the scene. There could be a whole Harvey Weinstein thing going on. So she, in the middle of the scene, realizes what's happening, and you see her hand go, bam, she slaps that thing on like Roger Roper slapping a sticker on a light pole.
How many times did you watch this scene?
Well, I read about it first, and then I went back to verify. I wasn't, again, remember, I didn't have closed captions, so I was laser focused on what was going on screen.
Well, William and Adso discover a labyrinthine library in the Abbey's Forbidden Principal Tower, one of the greatest libraries in all Christendom, containing dozens of works by classical masters such as Aristotle, thought to have been lost for centuries. William deduces that the library is kept hidden because such advanced knowledge coming from pagan philosophers is difficult to reconcile with Christianity. He further deduces, he does a lot of deducing, that all of those who died had read the only remaining copy of Aristotle's second book of Poetics. So as William's walking through this library, which is impressive, they did put a lot of love and effort into this. This is much cooler than like Labyrinth starring David Bowie. And I suddenly understood why Adso was in the movie, because I couldn't make sense of it until this point. Like, yes, he's the narrator and all that stuff, but William's doing his own thing. He doesn't need somebody to talk to, except he needs somebody to talk to, because otherwise it would just be William walking around talking to himself, which would be sort of weird.
I mean, I can understand why he's there. You need him at the end to give the opposing view and keep William in check and question what William is doing and why he's doing it.
I don't know if he has any impact in this movie.
Well, I think he's the one who gets William to stand up, spoiler alert, again, at the Inquisition, and to not just go along blindly so he doesn't get tortured and imprisoned. I think he is the seed of that thought and that action, but it's not the same if you just did an internal monologue. You needed him, and again, he is talking every step through there. Why is the soul imprint deeper? He was a heavy man, sir. No, he was dragging a body. They tell us everything. But it could have been worse, Gene. As bad as this was, do you know that this movie is rumored to be what George Lucas used as the influence for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace? That William of Baskerville is Qui-Gon Jinn, and then Adso is the young Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Which would make Jar Jar the peasant girl.
Well, it's the whole, we're going to discover what is the secret. Who is this Phantom Menace? And they're going through the entire film. What a hack. Lucas is the absolute worst. But I do respect this library, Gene, like you said. And it is filled with books, beautiful. They created them for the movie. Each page took 6 months. And I understand why William. He's a guy who thinks logically. He's a deep thinker. He secretly embraces science. He hides his scientific instruments. He's out there. He's going to try to take a pragmatic approach to this. So I understand why he loves books and knowledge is important to him. As far as Yorgi, the librarian, why is he keeping this book around? We understand later the motivation to hide them and to poison the book's corner so everyone who reads it dies is that they believe this book, that humor If people are allowed to laugh as adults, as normal people, they will eventually find a reason to laugh at God and laugh at religion. And this one book could undo all religions across the globe. And I don't understand. If this one book is that dangerous, why don't you burn it? Why don't you bury it? It's like the Ark of the Covenant. You got to hide it or people are going to eventually find it.
I think the problem is that Yorgi isn't like the supreme ruler of Christianity, right? So he probably doesn't have the authority to do it. Like, these books are entrusted to the Benedictine order. And if they were to just burn, he'd be in a lot of trouble. The way this place works, for people who haven't seen the movie, there's this big tower. And at the bottom level, there's like the monks who are doing the work. They're scribes, and it's kind of a writing room, right?
Translating. A
translating room. And then you've got above that, there's like a more secretive working area. And then there's a single door that has access to like the library. And there's a librarian who's the only person who's allowed up there plus his assistant. So you have to go to them as a monk and you got to say, hey, I need this book. And then he's going to say, why do you need it? And then you either get approved or rejected based on why you need it or whether you're willing to let them touch you in places. If you control the librarian, as Yorgi apparently does, then you should basically control all the books. Because even if somebody got through the library main door and like broke in, they'd likely not be able to find what they're looking for. So I think Yorgi, this is like him threading the needle, right? He's not destroying the books to run afoul of the Pope, but at the same time, he's not giving people access to the books. That's why there's so many of them hidden up there.
But we get the danger that the book is traded for sexual favors. And that's what starts this entire cascade of death and mystery off. Somebody was using this forbidden book to get a handy or get some unnatural caresses from a hot young boy.
Is there a book or movie that you would jerk a dude off to see?
100%. I would jerk off a dude to get season 8 of Game of Thrones. If the Double Ds had given a shit and taken the time and written a correct final season, I would tug somebody off. I don't have to make eye contact, do I?
No. It's in the dark. You're wearing robes.
Yes, I want to watch Danny not go complete psycho queen. Redo that whole thing, yes. That and also Who Killed Kennedy. I think I'd jerk a dude off for both.
All right, HBO, if you're listening and you have footage for both of those, write us, host at shatthemovies.com.
I want 2 for 1. I'm not doing 2 guys. I'll do 2 for 1.
William's investigations are curtailed by the arrival of his old rival, Bernardo Gui of the Inquisition, who previously had William tortured for heresy. Gui finds Salvatore and the girl fighting over a black cockerel while in the presence of a black cat, which Gui says is irrefutable proof that they are in league with Satan. Salvatore, Remigio, and the girl are dragged before a tribunal where Gui intimidates the abbot into concurring with his judgment of heresy. But William, also invited by Gui to serve on the panel of judges, refuses to confirm the accusations of murder. Gui resorts to extracting a confession from Remigio by threat of torture and once again accuses William of acts against the church.
So early on, it's established that William is like the smartest guy in the room. He's able to deduce where the bathroom is, even though he's never been there. He can tell what's going on in rooms just by how people react. So he is somebody who's of a just an intelligence that there's going to be no equal. They then start to hint about a past where he's had some service. So we don't know what it is. And then they introduce his adversary, Bernardo. We don't know what's happened, but I'm thinking, oh man, who can they get who is the equal to Sir Sean Connery? Somebody who can stand up to him on screen, who matches that gravitas. And I'm worried. I'm like, we're going to get some schlep, some other mutant, ugly actor who doesn't match him. But no, that fear washed away when we get Academy Award winning actor F. Murray Abraham. He comes out. This is right after he had just won the Academy Award for Amadeus. So he apparently on set was the big swinging dick. He was an asshole. He was the big star of the film on set. Ironically, the next year, Sean Connery got his for The Untouchables. But I think when they're on screen together, they are the only 2 actors who can go at each other on an equal footing. This is, Sean Connery's Batman to Abraham's Joker, and I was glad that they were both in the film.
He's also the only person other than Sean Connery or Christian Slater I can understand in this entire fucking movie. And he's not wholly unreasonable. That's kind of what was cool about this character, Bernardo Gui. Like, he's cruel He's very direct. But put yourself in his shoes. If I walked to this abbey, like, people are dying, strange things are happening, someone needs to solve this, and I'm an inquisitor, and I fucking walk in, and there's a ragged peasant girl, and there's like mutant-ass Salvatore, and they've got a fucking black cat, a burning candle, and a dead cockerel. It looks like fucking devil worship. I mean, it was devil worship. That's what he was doing. He was trying to do a spell.
Yeah, I agree. And they both deserve to die. If you have that black...
Oh, she deserved to die?
She didn't know better, but fine. You can't have those objects around. You're just waiting to get accused of witchcraft. It's bound to happen. I would just be real careful what I did. But this film, you talked early on that the film was considered a failure, that the U.S. box office was only 7.2 million. Internationally, in Europe, this shit did real well, $77 million. It became a bona fide hit because of that internationally. And I was going to tell Ash. Ash would be so happy because she loves France. She always likes to brag that she speaks French. So I was excited to tell her. I was going to be like, hey, Ash, did you know that in 1986 that this was the 4th highest grossing film in France? But unfortunately, she'll have to listen to it when she listens to the podcast. But I suppose the reason that's happened, today on Twitter and Instagram, I posted the 4 different versions of the poster and cover art for this film. And I'm going to describe them to you quick, and I won't do it justice. The US version is one of those hand-drawn, kind of like comic strip versions. Think Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You have a character in the center, which is Sean Connery, looking very sassy. He's looking very pompous. He's in the middle. Then around him is like a column or an arch of stone with the heads of characters from the film doing their like big moment. Like the Inquisitor is like accusing someone. You have the 2 lovers in an embrace. It looks really bad. I would not want to see it. It doesn't tell me what it is. It looks like something you'd expect from Lady Hawk. Then we go international. The poster for this is like avant-garde abstract. There are some men in hoods with blue faces who are not in the film. Sean Connery's robe in the drawing like descends into flames where they're burning people. There's a set of monks with torches. It looks almost like it was some space opera, obscure, weird film that you had to watch. I think if you had that poster in the US, this shit would have done at least 70 million.
And currently, like the one that's most widely used, just a photograph of like Sean Connery's face, is not appealing sell for this movie.
And I don't know why. Usually I don't give like all of these movie facts. Usually we just talk about our feelings and stupid shit like, vagina patches. But for some reason, I went down the rabbit hole with this film. The company that did the wardrobes also did the wardrobes for the Star Wars films. One of the monks is wearing Obi-Wan's original robe from Star Wars: A New Hope.
Oh, see, we should have just let off with that. That's going to be in the description of this episode.
That's why I didn't go to school to become someone in the press. But yes, sorry for burying the lead.
When the head librarian dies, William and Adso ascend a forbidden library and discover Venerable Yorgi, the Abbey's most ancient brother, with the book, which describes comedy and how it may be used to teach. Believing laughter and jocularity to be instruments of the devil, Yorgi has poisoned the pages to stop the spread of what he considers dangerous ideas. Yorgi throws over a candle, starting a blaze that quickly engulfs the library. William insists that Adso flee as he manages to collect an inadequate armload of invaluable books to save. The volume of poetics, Yorgi, and the rest of the library are lost to the fire.
Okay, so you said, Yorgi cannot burn the book. He can't get rid of it. He doesn't have the authority to that, but he has the authority to like poison the corners of the pages. You think he got authorized for that?
It's poetic when you think about it.
So I'm going to describe this character because I'm going to assume that 90% of the people who listen to this podcast have not seen it. So think Emperor Palpatine. He's decrepit. He's old. He can barely walk on his own. He's got this hood and like cloak. He's stumbling around, and you can tell that he has cataracts. His eyes are completely frosted. There's no way he can see, and he is stumbling around through the movie blind. Now we get to the scene where there's going to be a race up to the hidden library. William knows where the book is. Him and the very young and spry 15-year-old Adso are racing up the labyrinth stairs. Somehow, this ancient, decrepit man who could not walk beats them up there. He is somehow able to go from a seated position to ditch his cane, hurdle the desk, snatch the book, get past these two able-bodied men, escape through a locked mirror door, navigate the maze, run out. They allow him to escape. I just don't even know how. It reminded me of the Pepsi commercials with Uncle Drew, the Kyrie Irving, where they dress him as like an old man. And then he goes out on the courts to play like some just people out playing street ball. And he ends up being able to do these miraculous things. It was ridiculous and it made no sense.
Maybe he's pulling like a verbal Kint, where he overplays his disabilities to fall out of suspicion. Yes, the cataracts, those are clearly there, but maybe he can move a little bit better than he lets on. Plus, he has several advantages, Big D. Think about this. You mentioned one already, the labyrinth. He knows the labyrinth. He knows it better than anybody. He goes up there all the time. He knows the entire Abbey better than William and Atso. By the way, Atso couldn't even catch fucking fat-ass Uncle Fester running around, so what makes you think he can catch an old man? And his body... Yorgi's body is conditioned to this topography. He's like an old goat. He can just climb a mountain at will.
Dude, he treats that desk like it's a pommel horse. Like he's an Olympic athlete. He grabs the side, swings his legs around, and he is gone. He's gone down like 6 flights of stairs.
I'm surprised that's your issue with Yorgi, though. My issue with Yorgi is his motivation for the fucking crimes. It's the lamest reason. It's the biggest letdown of any movie we've ever seen. He is poisoning his fellow Benedictine monks because he hates comedy. Like, you can't even call that a plot twist because Yorgi and William earlier in the movie angrily debate the virtue of comedy in this specific book in front of fucking everybody. He's also like the creepiest, angriest dude in the movie. You can't ever have the creepiest, angriest dude in the movie end up being behind the killings. It's not a surprise at that point. There's no twist.
That's true. And they do mix in a bunch of Friday the 13th type shots where you're seeing the killer like stumble around and pick up the object. And he's like, get, out. And you see them approaching and the victim is like, oh no. And then they swing it and there's blood all over the place. So it does seem a bit odd, but I can understand that is the backdrop. That's what's going on in the background. There's constant debates about whether or not the church should make money, whether what the Pope is doing is actually following the intent of the Bible. So a lot of that's just the tapestry, Gene. That's just the world building that they've done. And I think humor and laughter, it's a dangerous thing.
So Big D, in this never-ending relay we call Shat the Movies, Roger Roper used to always ask the hypothetical, and then he sort of passed that baton to you. And I think I'm just going to grab it for just a second because I already asked you about what TV show or book it would take to get you to jerk a dude off. Mm-hmm. Now I got to ask you about the Sophie's Choice of the fire, right? Library fire is burning, and poor William is trying to decide which books to keep, and he just kind of like just collapses on top of all of them because he realizes that even if he saves 4, another 400 are going to be burned. And I'm thinking, God, what ancient books would I save if a fire broke out in a rare library? Like, would it be the collected works of Shakespeare or the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Nuremberg Chronicle? And it was just too hard to choose. I didn't want to bring that question to you, Big D, because I knew we'd be sitting here for hours.
Yes.
Painfully going over all the books that we love. So I want to make it a little more personal. There's a fire burning, and you have to choose between every photo you've ever taken going up in flames. Not a copy of them exists anywhere in the world, digital or otherwise, or the entire library of Shat recordings. Every minute that you've ever recorded on this podcast, gone. TV and movies.
Well, again, you're not going to like the answer because you always make fun of my father of the bride shit. I have to say pictures because it's not because the pictures of my past. I remember what we did. I don't even look at most of them. But the pictures of like Emma as a kid, Emma being born, that stuff I still look at and that makes me smile and that means more to me. So if you let me keep Emma's, right? If I could keep Emma's siloed in a hidden library, and then you said every picture from my life except for Emma's birth and the Shat the Movies record, that's tough because I am a freak for backups. I have copies of copies, redundant backups. I got nervous when there was a period where we didn't have the working production files for all of our podcasts. I've since loosened my OCD control over that. Man, to undo hundreds of hours, thousands of hours at this point now of editing, watching. I think, I would protect the Shat recordings. I would protect the Shat recordings as long as I could keep photos of Emma.
The Shat recordings are relevant to thousands of people and could be relevant going on forever and ever, whereas your family photos are relevant to basically you. Nobody else gives a shit. I imagine Vanessa's got photos too, right? So it wouldn't be like...
But I thought the intent of your question was that nobody has them. That I can't see them somewhere else.
No, it's every photo you've ever taken, but that's photos from your childhood.
Who
from
cares?
Your army days, all those photos.
Oh, I don't care. Get rid of the photos. Yeah, I thought you were saying they didn't exist. Yeah, I don't care. Vanessa's got enough good pictures. I can piece it all together from Instagram. I don't care about that. But the Shat recordings, it is a collective memory of the last 5 years of my life. I remember where I was when we recorded an episode. I remember what was going on, what we talked about. So it basically is the snapshot that the pictures are.
That's a good answer. Back to the movie. Salvatore and Remigio have been burned at the stake. By the way, they were burned at the stake. The girl has been slated for the same fate, but local peasants free her and turn on Gui. They throw his wagon off a cliff and Gui is impaled. Leaving the abbey, Adso is stopped by the girl, silently appealing for him to stay with her. But Adso continues on with William. In his closing narration, a much older Adso reflects that he never regretted his decision, as he learned many more things from William. Adso says the girl was the only earthly love of his life, yet he never learned her name.
Okay, so I'm going to try to tread lightly here because we got a complaint recently. People are so sensitive. People worry about woke politics. If you make fun of anyone's religion, people just melt down. You can dissect someone's entire being, their entire belief structure. Everyone's cool with it, physical appearance. But if you talk about God or Allah or whatever, people will go kill cartoonists, or people will go in and just attack you for questioning their beliefs. So I'm going to be careful here. I was raised atheist. I'm open to the idea of a higher power. I don't know what it is. But as I'm watching this movie, it's making me think that religion's ridiculous on a whole, because there's not much of a difference between Christianity than what we see in Game of Thrones, the Lord of Light, people being resurrected. You get a lot of the things seem to be relatively the same and believable, and water to wine and just the rebirth and just angels and devil battling for our souls. But I'll tell you one thing, if I was in that time, the Inquisition, 100%, I'm on board, buddy. I'm beating the Bible. I'm going to go out there. I don't want to end up getting burned at the stake. I would shut my mouth and I'd be like, yes, Gene Lyons, you're a heretic. Burn him and not me. There is no way I'm questioning the church officials. I'm not going to get tortured. I'm on board. I would be the most pious individual out of just self-preservation.
Yeah, dude, when facts are thrown out and evidence is thrown out and literally just anyone can accuse anyone, it's terrifying. And they do a good job of capturing that in the movie. Like if I was William, I wouldn't I would have left way earlier, because there's really nobody worth redeeming in this entire place. And the entire concept of the Inquisition, for those who don't know, the roots of the Inquisition, right? It was basically, as the church expanded, they had people who converted for Judaism or Islam. And it was a way to be well, did they really convert? How are these conversions going, right? And it reminded me of Big D. You were talking about Muriel's wedding, the citizenship interviews, right? You guys were talking about how they ask you all these questions. Mm-hmm. It was basically that for the Dark Ages. It's so you're converted, yeah? Okay, let's
Yes.
find out how converted you are. Fuck that. I am as converted as you need me to be. So yeah, I mean, it's no wonder that nobody stood up to him, because you don't want to be tortured. You don't want to be locked away. You don't want to be killed.
Hey, do you need me to collect sticks? I'll go get firewood. Yeah, I saw that cat in there. I knew what they were doing. There's black magic afoot. Bernardo, do you need me to light it? I'm a good fire starter.
I did think it was interesting at the end of this movie, though, that they made it sound in the movie like the name of the rose was the name of the girl that he never got. When Umberto Eco, the author of The Name of the Rose, said that he just kind of picked a generic name. It had nothing to do with anything in the book, really. It wasn't specific to anything. But this scene, in the description, I said that the girl was silently appealing for Adso to stay with her. I kind of took it as she was like, please put me on your horse and get me the fuck out of here, which I thought he was going to do. And this is like a Rob Stark moment. Like a lot of people think Rob Stark was an idiot, had sex out of wedlock, and then felt that he needed to marry her to, you know, preserve her virtue and preserve her name, even though, spoiler alert, cost him the war and a lot more. I thought Adso was going to be that kind of a stand-up guy, right? I think Rob Stark's a badass. Adso fucks this peasant girl, talks about loving her, and then when she's being burned at the stake, what's he doing? He's fucking around trying to drop portcullises on Bernardo Gui, which, by the way, he ends up just locking himself in the Abbey, which is fucking so embarrassing. He sees her on the road. All the shit is resolved. She's freezing. She's in the snow without a penny to her fucking name. She's starving, and he just rides on.
It's painful. It's like if you've ever been to like an ASPCA or a dog shelter and all the dogs are sitting there looking at you like, adopt me.
Yeah.
Please adopt me. He's had this moment. They've locked eyes. They've made love.
It's a dog you fucked.
And he leaves her. He straight up leaves her. And then he even makes it worse. He compounds it. He gives her the horse right away, stops, turns like, I'm going to come back. And then goes, nope, teased you, and keeps going.
Religious aspirations are fine. Assuming there's a God, okay, and God's looking down on you, and you have the choice between learning a bunch from William or saving a woman's life and lifting her from poverty, you've seen what her life is, and you still are like, and dude, her body's still fly. There's still an opportunity to save her. She's not ruined by the ages yet or by eating lice.
Dude, he's not going to hell. Even William didn't condemn him. He said life would be boring without women. He got it once, okay? He had his taste, and he got away with it. He's still going home. Pick her up, take her with you. You guys have fun along the road. Maybe you keep her on the side. You don't let the brothers or the other monks know. There's so many things you could have done other than to leave her in that hovel. In all the other movies we've done medieval times, there's always the big rescue at the end or the attempt. The only one that fails is Game of Thrones. But in Robin Hood, you get dudes like getting catapulted over the wall. They're shooting the ropes. And I'm like, shit, we're not going to get that here because the men of the Inquisition, these mercenaries outnumber the locals. There's no chance of it. But then they have an uprising. Because the fire breaks out, all the monks run, all the guards run, the envoy from the Pope, they nope out, like, shit, we're out of here. They get back in their caravan, they get tail out. So Bernardo's left there alone. They start throwing rocks. He gets in his carriage, which is like an armored monster truck carriage. Like 2 or 3 peasants push it. The next thing, it's like Tunsis the Cat on SNL. The shit is off the side of a cliff, tumbling down. It breaks apart, and Bernardo's like lifeless body is now impaled on some kind of medieval like farming till. It was sped up and slowed down. It was comically bad.
And here's the thing: all Bernardo had to do is be like, "People of the village, I will give you like 4 doubloons." You could have quelled that entire uprising with a loaf of bread,
with an ox heart.
God, we're like French nobles up here in our Shat Tower.
They went nuts for like dirty cabbage getting thrown down the side of a cliff. They would have done anything.
Well, now is the time in the podcast where we give our Shat score for The Name of the Rose. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get our respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is being a librarian in an age when librarians were respected and fondled. 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie. It is living in a lice-infested hut with no TV and only chickens shitting on your face to keep you entertained. Big D, we'll start with you. How many wipes do you give The Name of the Rose?
So I've been known to enjoy a good mystery. I do. I find them entertaining. I like Law and Order. I like those types of shows, not as much as Ash does. I liked Columbo. So this is a friar version of Columbo mixed with the medieval backdrop. I thought that the mystery itself was a bit predictable. Maybe because I was laser focused on everybody's mouth and the details. I could see what was going on.
Butt dimples.
Yes, I knew the book was poisoned, the glove, the ink, the tongue, how people were dying. It was heavy-handed. They really showed their hand. But the sets are beautiful. The mutant actors, they looked frightening. The life in that period looked terrible. The hot peasant girl who will take up space rent-free in my head. I will have memories of that disrobing and thinking about young Christian Slater thinking he's going to have on-screen intercourse only to fail to perform. It's a 2.5 white movie. It's 2 hours, 11 minutes. It's long, but Sean Connery makes it work. I will never watch it again, but I'm glad that I watched it as intently as I did with my little double like magnifying glass lenses, but it's 2.5 wipes. It's an average film. You can't tear it apart.
Brothers, people of the Shat congregation, do not listen to this heretic. This is not an average movie. I'm sorry. This is a far below average movie. Even Brian admits this is a below average movie. Is it completely without merit? No. Did I enjoy it? No. We spent 2 hours on a whodunit where the hero is never wrong. The entire conspiracy is clear from the start. It is a massive waste of time. The makeup crew got really carried away, and it felt more like a casting call for Nosferatu than a murder mystery set in a Benedictine Abbey. So for me, this is a 4-wipe movie.
Which do you think's better, this or Lady Hawk?
I would rather watch Lady Hawk.
Okay, you give Lady Hawk a 4 as well, so at least you're consistent.
But I'd rather Lady Hawk was more entertaining. Matthew Broderick with the sexy synthesizer, swimming around in the ultra clean waters, Rutger Hauer turning into a wolf and shit, and sword play, and hawks flying around.
I think if you gave this film the Lady Hawk treatment, synth soundtrack, trim it down to about maybe 70 minutes.
Yeah.
This could, I mean, because Matthew Broderick, you could even mix him and Christian Slater in some scenes together. You could have some sword fights. You know that De Niro was originally supposed to play William, but then he proposed a sword fight scene between him and Bernardo, and the director let him go. He said, "We're going to go a different direction."
Van Damme was like, "I like it." Well, with 4 wipes from me and 2.5 wipes from Big D, that gives us an average wipe score. Brian, you called it, of 3.25 wipes for The Name of the Rose.
Okay, so that, Gene, that now ties this in the 243 spot with only 2 films, Judgment Night and Dirty Work. It is slightly better than Lost Boys, Caddyshack, and Videodrome, and slightly worse than In the Army Now of Mice and Men and 16 Candles.
You feel in your heart of hearts that this movie is better than The Lost Boys.
It's better than Muriel's Wedding. And it's like I said, there were people who worked really hard on this film.
Yeah.
It was a movie. It was professionally done. I think no one should be embarrassed. And Gene, it kickstarted Sean Connery's renaissance. And again, I don't think it's that bad. Maybe with subtitles, I would have been laid back more and I would have not liked it. But I can't help what I like.
I think as your penance for this, Big D, you need to put together a soundboard of Salvatore just singing and saying things for future episodes.
Sabe nada, and then he starts speaking. Stupida, no, yes.
I want to get to a couple voicemails. We are way behind on these, and we are trying our best to get them done, guys. But we also try to keep the episodes to an hour, and we've just been having way too much fun. Our first voicemail comes from Mike Woolley, who is calling in about the movie AI.
Hey, Shat crew, this is Mike Woolley here. I got to say, like, this next couple weeks are just, like, the most exciting for me because as, like, an 11-year-old, for some reason, Ice Pirates, Caveman, and Stripes
oh my God, this is
seem
old.
to be the movies that showed up, like, on our cable box back in the day. And I watched those so many times. And even back then, other than Stripes, I knew they were bad movies, but I didn't really care. But that's not why I'm calling. When Ash brought up AI, all I've got to say is, for some reason, the end of that movie completely broke me. I am a 6'6", like, at the time, 20-something-year-old guy, and I all of a sudden just wept uncontrollably for a good half hour. My wife had to, like, console me, and she's going, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, I have no idea. So I don't know what sort of, like, Season of the Witch weird stuff Spielberg put in that thing at the end, but it messed me up for good, and I have lived with the shame of that moment for until I listened to your episode yesterday. So thank you, Shat crew, for another great episode. I'm looking forward to you guys bashing Caveman, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Atuk Luna Lana. Atuk.
Well, Mike, I hope you enjoyed our Caveman episode back in January. Dude, there's no shame in getting and falling apart over that AI final scene. I had the same reaction to it. I think people of our generation just reacted very strangely. And Steven Spielberg is a very talented director. He knew exactly what he was doing there.
And Gene, also, we've never done this before, but I just want to promote. If you go to shatpod.com/movies events, you can see our schedule all the way out to 2024. And I'm just going to give you a couple big movies that we have coming up here. We've never done this before, but I'm going to give you some big films coming up. We have Stripes coming up, Halloween 3, Dances with Wolves, The Muppet Movie Splash, Deep Rising, Jaws, The Wizard, Return to Oz, Tango and Cash, 6 months to Tango and Cash, The Wraith, Airplane, Speed, Highlander 2, and Hackers, just to name a few. So we got some good ones that everybody should love. It should make everybody happy.
Hack the planet. Thanks, Mike, for your voicemail. Next up, we have one from Adam from Philly calling in about Cloak and Dagger.
Hey, guys. Adam from Philly again. Sorry I keep clogging up your mailbox with my voicemails, but you just give me something to think about every time I listen to a different pod. So just finished your Judgment Night pod. Also guilty. I got it mixed up with Trespass because I'm like, oh, it's the one with Ice-T. Definitely not the one with Ice-T. So great as always. Definitely not going to revisit that one because, just don't remember it being that good, and neither you guys, didn't think it was that good. So I'm not going to. Anyway, I'll shut up. That's not what I'm calling about. At the end, Big D brought up the Riverwalk in San Antonio and Cloak and Dagger. All right. Here's the deal. I'm going to email as soon as I get home. I'm emailing Big D. I will gladly commission Cloak and Dagger if you guys will do it. I have such good memories of that game and that movie when I was a kid. It was like one of my brother's favorite movies. And who doesn't want more Dabney Coleman in their life, right? So I will gladly commission that. I'll send the email when I get home. Just wanted to shout out to you guys. As always, you're awesome. You're making driving so much better. Love you guys, and talk to you soon. Bye.
So, Adam, thank you very much. I agree. Cloak and Dagger is amazing. I remember the summer it came out. It was legendary. It's got video games. It's got the kid from E.T., Dabney Coleman, some espionage video games, hidden plans for a SR-71 Blackbird. It's great. Got your email. Yes, please make it happen. Sorry we took a while to respond. Not to bore everybody, but the amount of work it takes to keep everything going, that sometimes we get a little backed up in the stuff that isn't mission critical. So sorry we didn't. I'll email you back today, but make that happen because that movie, probably terrible, but I loved it as a kid.
For people who have been calling in and writing in, we are reading and listening to all those. I'll do my best to get together an episode in like April on Twitch, and then we can release it as an audio too, so that we can kind of just burst through a bunch of these and get us all caught up. And before we close out, I wanted to send one other special thank you really quickly to Paul Carter out there in Middlesbrough, up the borough. Paul and I write to each other all the time, and I was going to dedicate an episode to him, and he commented on this one, and when Big D posted it on Instagram, and just said, yeah, this looks shite. So this is the one I'm going to dedicate to you, Paul. I am holding in my hands right now the beautiful vintage Arsenal Nike Dennis Bergkamp kit that you sent me. And Paul wrote in and said, Shat the Movies is my 45 minutes of escape from the pressures of life, and the fact you and Big D have the same sense of humor makes it all the much more special. Please pass on my love and best wishes to Big D, Ash, and your beautiful Sarah. I wish you all the happiness in the world. P.S. I managed to write this without swearing fucking once. I love you guys. Long live Shat the Movies. And that comes from Paul. So Paul, thank you so much. I'm wearing this kit with pride. And I can't wait to send you something in return.
It's almost a sacrilegious to wear that. The thing is so beautiful.
It is really beautiful. It's still got the tags on it.
It needs to be framed.
Right?
Oh, or actually, I'll go against what I just said. That thing needs to be beaten up and worn and eventually fall apart because it was made for that purpose.
We're going to put Big D in it.
I can fit in it now.
When he visits. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's move on to next week's movie. Take it away, Big D.
So, Gene, next week, we've got a musical number for our listeners. Wily band manager Mr. White helps a small-town band achieve big success when they release a Beatles-style pop song in 1964. Pennsylvanian band The Wonders, spelled with an O, become a sensation after their drummer breaks his arm and is replaced by jazz enthusiast Guy, who injects something a bit different into their music. Commissioned by Tony R., came out in 96, And it's what we need right now, a little bit more Tom Hanks. So I've never seen this, excited to do it. And one of the players on my co-ed team, she spoke very highly of this film, and she said she loves it. So I'm optimistic.
All right. Well, thank you, Tony, for commissioning the upcoming movie. Thank you, Brian, for commissioning The Name of the Rose. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media, share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Ash, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for this following movie.
We bow in unison, and we're off the stage before the applause dies out, right? You have your pick?
Right here.
All right. Keep these with you. Put them on, put them on, put them on. There you go. You guys look great in red. Have I told you that yet?
Let's give a big welcome to the latest addition to the Phantom Galaxy of the Stars.
Go!
Doing that thing they do. It's the Wonders!
Doing that thing you do, breaking my heart into a million pieces.
So mark that day. Wonderful Wonders!
And you don't mean to be cruel. You never even knew about the heartache I've been going through. Well, I try to forget you, girl, but it's just so hard to do. And if I know you're doing that thing every day, just doing that thing, I can't take you doing that thing you do.
Let's go. We'll change clothes. No, put that down. We've got people who do that for you, Jimmy. You got a hit record, for God's sakes, on the plate.